They controlled you through confusion, fed on your reactions, and made you believe you were powerless. But the moment you evolve, when you stop playing their game, the entire illusion collapses. Because nothing terrifies a narcissist more than the version of you they can no longer control. The narcissist's illusion breaks the moment you evolve beyond their control. You see, their entire sense of power is built on the illusion that they are the center of your reality. They craft narratives designed to make you doubt your perceptions, twist your emotions, and question your own worth. They feed on that uncertainty because it allows them to define the terms of your existence. Every reaction you give, anger, fear, guilt, becomes fuel for their illusion. It confirms to them that they still hold the strings. But when you evolve, when you begin to see through the manipulation and reclaim your sense of self, that illusion begins to fracture. It doesn't shatter all at once. It begins subtly, almost imperceptibly, in those quiet moments when you start to notice patterns, when you stop believing every accusation, when you stop explaining yourself to someone who's never listening. That's the point where the dynamic starts to shift. Narcissists rely on emotional engagement. It doesn't matter if it's positive or negative, attention is attention. They need to provoke reactions because your reaction validates their importance. The illusion only survives as long as you're playing your part in it. But evolution means stepping out of that script. It means understanding that their words don't define reality. Your perception does. When you detach from their drama, you pull the foundation out from under their control. The more you ground yourself in truth, the more desperate they become to pull you back into the game because your awareness is a direct threat to their dominance. This process requires immense courage. It's not easy to step outside of a pattern that's been reinforced through fear and manipulation. The narcissist has likely trained you, consciously or not, to equate compliance with safety, to keep the peace by minimizing yourself, to sacrifice your authenticity for temporary calm. But evolving beyond their control means facing that discomfort head on. It means acknowledging that peace built on submission isn't peace at all. It's a slow erosion of the soul. And so you begin to rebuild yourself from the inside out. You start to trust your intuition again, the voice that they taught you to silence. You begin to realize that the chaos they bring into your life isn't normal, it's strategic. It's designed to keep you small. The illusion also depends on isolation. Narcissists are masters at cutting you off from perspectives that might threaten their narrative. They distort your sense of what's real until you become dependent on their version of events. But as you evolve, as you reconnect with others, with truth, with evidence outside of their manipulation, that dependency fades. You begin to see that what they presented as reality was just a construct, a carefully maintained stage performance designed to keep them in control. Your awakening becomes their undoing because their power cannot survive in the light of awareness. And here's the crucial part. Breaking free from their illusion doesn't require confrontation. It requires evolution of consciousness. It's not about defeating them, it's about seeing them clearly. Once you understand the mechanics of their manipulation, it loses its grip. You stop personalizing their cruelty. You stop trying to decode every shift in their mood. You realize that their behavior was never about you. It was about maintaining their illusion of superiority. And that realization is liberating. Because when you stop engaging, when you stop believing that their opinion holds power over your identity, the illusion collapses under its own weight. Evolving beyond their control means stepping into radical self-responsibility. You take ownership of your emotions, your reactions, your growth. You no longer hand them the authority to dictate how you feel or who you are. You become grounded in your own values, your own truth. And in that groundedness, their chaos loses meaning. What once felt like power now appears as desperation. What once seemed intimidating now looks empty. Their illusion can only survive when you believe in it. The moment you stop believing, it ends. They thrive on your emotional reactions and lose power in your calm. Every narcissist depends on the emotional energy of others to sustain their sense of importance. They need to provoke, to push buttons, to elicit a reaction that proves they still matter. Whether it's anger, tears, or confusion, your response tells them they still have control. It reassures them that they can reach inside your mind and twist your emotions at will. That's why their tactics are always designed to create instability. They'll say something cruel and then act as though it never happened. They'll rewrite events, distort facts, and insist that your memory is wrong. Their goal isn't to win an argument, it's to keep you reactive. Because in your reactivity, you're predictable, and in your predictability, they hold power. But calm destroys the dynamic completely. When you stop giving them the emotional payoff they seek, they lose their grip. Narcissists don't know how to operate in emotional stillness. They thrive on chaos because chaos keeps you focused on them. It keeps you defending, explaining, justifying. Calm removes the fuel. It creates silence, and in that silence, their tactics fall flat. The insults lose meaning. The manipulation loses impact. They begin to realize they can no longer reach you in the way they once did. And that terrifies them because their identity depends on their ability to provoke reactions from others. When you remain calm, they feel exposed, powerless, irrelevant. Achieving that calm doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you choose not to perform for their game. It's an act of discipline, of inner strength. You learn to take a deep breath instead of responding to every provocation. You learn to observe rather than react. You begin to understand that their chaos is not your responsibility to fix. That their anger, their manipulation, their projection, all of it belongs to them. When you stop internalizing their emotions, you begin to see their patterns clearly. And in that clarity, you regain control of yourself. The narcissist's power isn't real, it's borrowed. It exists only when you participate in the emotional tug of war. When you stay calm, you deny them that participation. They may escalate at first, trying harder to draw you back in with guilt, rage, or pity. But over time, they realize the old tactics don't work anymore. Your emotional neutrality becomes a wall they can't climb. The more you master it, the more you see how much of their strength depended on your reaction. Staying calm also allows you to think clearly. When emotions run high, logic disappears, and that's exactly what the narcissist counts on. They need you overwhelmed, impulsive, desperate to be understood. Calmness restores your awareness. It lets you see through their manipulations instead of drowning in them. It's not passivity, it's power. It's the ability to remain centered while they unravel, to respond from strength rather than fear. Your calm becomes your boundary, your protection, your quiet rebellion against their control. Self-awareness and silence are the narcissist's greatest threats. Narcissists depend on confusion, chaos, and noise to maintain control. The more you talk, explain, and defend, the more they twist your words to suit their narrative. They study your emotions, looking for weaknesses to exploit. They rely on your need to be understood, your tendency to over-explain, your fear of being misunderstood. But when you become self-aware, when you start to observe instead of react, you remove their ability to manipulate you through your emotions. You begin to recognize the pattern behind their words, the manipulation hidden beneath their charm or anger. Self-awareness turns you from a participant into an observer, and that shift changes everything. Silence magnifies this power. When you stop feeding into their provocations, you create a void they can't control. Narcissists are addicted to emotional energy, to the validation that comes from your reactions. Silence denies them that supply. It forces them to face their own emptiness, something they spend their lives trying to avoid. Your silence becomes a mirror reflecting back the truth of who they are. And they hate that reflection because it exposes the hollowness beneath their facade. They'll often try to break that silence to bait you into speaking, apologizing, or defending yourself. But the more you resist, the weaker their influence becomes. Self-awareness also brings clarity to your boundaries. You begin to see the ways you've been conditioned to abandon yourself in order to maintain peace. You notice the guilt that arises when you say no, the anxiety when you stop trying to please. Awareness allows you to trace those reactions back to their source, to realize they were planted there by manipulation, not truth. Once you recognize that, you stop feeling obligated to carry emotional burdens that don't belong to you. Silence gives you the space to process that realization, to rebuild your identity around authenticity rather than fear. Narcissists can't handle silence because it leaves them powerless. They can't twist what you don't say. They can't argue with words that never come. They can't project their guilt onto someone who refuses to engage. Silence exposes their dependency on control and attention. And while they might interpret your calmness as arrogance or coldness, in reality it's your protection. It's the barrier that keeps their chaos from entering your mind. The combination of self-awareness and silence is devastating to their illusion. It shows that you no longer need their approval to validate your reality. It means you're no longer willing to explain your worth or justify your boundaries. You've begun to trust yourself again, to listen to your intuition, the very thing they tried to silence. And once you do, the narcissist's words lose power. Their accusations fall flat. Their manipulation feels transparent. What once hooked you emotionally now appears desperate and small. Your silence becomes a statement of strength, your self-awareness the foundation of your freedom. True strength is walking away without needing closure or revenge. The need for closure often comes from a desire to make sense of something that was never built on truth. With narcissists, that closure will never come because their version of events constantly shifts to protect their ego. They rewrite history to avoid accountability and project blame to preserve control. Waiting for them to admit what they did or to validate your pain keeps you trapped in their cycle. They thrive on your need for answers because it ensures you remain emotionally tied to them. But real strength emerges when you accept that some people will never give you the truth you deserve. You stop seeking justice from those who live through deception, and instead, you choose peace over explanation. Walking away without revenge means releasing the illusion of control over their downfall. Narcissists are already trapped in their own prison of emptiness. Their punishment is the life they live, a life built on manipulation, superficial validation, and inner chaos. When you walk away, you're not letting them win. You're simply refusing to keep losing yourself in the process. Revenge only feeds the same energy that hurt you. It keeps you emotionally entangled, tied to the very person you're trying to escape. The true act of defiance is indifference, to no longer care how they see you or what story they tell. It takes immense inner discipline to walk away quietly. Every part of you wants to be understood, to prove the truth, to make them see the damage they caused. But trying to make a narcissist understand empathy is like trying to explain color to someone who refuses to open their eyes. They can't grasp it because doing so would require them to confront their own emptiness. Strength is choosing silence over chaos, self-respect over vindication. It's the moment you decide your healing is worth more than their recognition. When you stop chasing closure, something shifts within you. You begin to redirect all the energy you once poured into them back toward yourself. You start rebuilding your boundaries, rediscovering your values, reconnecting with who you are outside of their distortion. Each step away from them becomes a step toward your own integrity. And as you grow stronger, you start to see how little power they ever truly had. Their control was never real. It only existed as long as you sought their approval. Walking away without revenge or closure doesn't mean you're weak or naive. It means you've matured beyond the need for validation from the very person who tried to destroy your sense of self. It's a declaration that you refuse to participate in their emotional games. You learn to let silence speak louder than any explanation, to let distance do what words never could. Strength isn't about fighting harder. It's about finally choosing yourself and walking away with dignity intact. Your evolution exposes their weakness and ends the game entirely. Narcissists build their power on illusion, on convincing you that they are superior, unshakable, and in control. They construct an image of dominance and confidence, but it's only a mask. Underneath it lies fragility, insecurity, and deep dependence on others for emotional survival. When you evolve, when you begin to see beyond the mask, their illusion starts to collapse. They can no longer manipulate someone who sees the truth. Your growth becomes a mirror that reflects everything they've tried to hide, and that reflection is unbearable for them. It shows them their own emptiness, the very thing they've spent their lives running from. The narcissist's power relies on keeping you unaware. They need you confused, doubting yourself, emotionally reactive. When you evolve, you dismantle that entire structure by gaining clarity. You begin to understand their behavior not as personal attacks, but as patterns of fear and control. That awareness turns their manipulation into transparency. What once hurt you now looks predictable, almost mechanical. And once you see it clearly, you stop feeding into it. They lose their ability to dictate your emotions or your sense of worth because you've outgrown their control. Your evolution threatens them because it breaks the dependency they worked so hard to create. They want you to need them for validation, for direction, for identity. When you no longer seek any of those things from them, they face an uncomfortable truth. They have no real power. All they ever had was the illusion of importance you gave them. When you take that back, they're left exposed. They can't function without a supply of admiration, fear, or attention. And your evolution denies them all three. As you evolve, you also stop speaking their language. You no longer respond with emotion when they provoke you. No longer explain yourself when they distort reality. No longer chase their approval when they withdraw affection. That calm, detached energy is something they can't manipulate. It's like holding a mirror up to their tactics and watching them fail. They may try to reassert control through anger, guilt, or charm, but it doesn't work anymore because you've become conscious of the game. You've stepped outside of it entirely, and that's the one move they can't counter. The irony is that your evolution exposes their weakness without you needing to do anything dramatic. You don't have to humiliate them or prove their lies. The simple act of growing, healing, and reclaiming your peace does it for you. Their strength fades when your awareness rises. Their dominance disappears when your boundaries solidify. The game ends not with confrontation, but with transformation. You become untouchable in ways they can't comprehend because your sense of power no longer depends on their recognition. Your evolution isn't just freedom. It's the silent truth that ends their illusion forever.